So Proxmox Backup Server got a major upgrade back in August, and it's one a lot of us have been talking about. You can now back up directly to S3 compatible object storage, meaning Wasabi, Backblaze, MinIO, self-hosted S3 instances are now available without having, bolt to third-party tools. Now let's walk through how to set it up, why you might want to use it, how it fits into a solid 3-2-1 backup strategy for your home lab or production setup. How's it going today, folks? Zack Perry back here with 45 homelab, and today we're diving into one of the features that's shipped with Proxmox Backup Server 4, or PBS. And that'd be S3 Datastore. So if you're following the Proxmox ecosystem, you know PBS has always supported local NFS and Ceph storage, great for on-prem backups, but a bit limited when it comes to true offsite protection. Now, you could send this off manually, but the addition of an S3 Datastore has been fantastic. So this release adds S3 endpoint and Datastore integration, currently labeled as a tech preview, but it's already stable enough for testing like production, but of course, test extensively first. When it comes to anything newly released, treat it like gambling. Don't put in all of your chips unless you're already willing to lose it all. But we're dealing with backups, so it's not as catastrophic as that, but I digress. So for today's video, we're using the HL15 2.0 AMD motherboard, 128 gigs of RAM, and this thing is going to be a beast for virtualization. Now, why actually use S3 for PBS backups? There's a lot of things already out there, but the reason it's such a big deal is until now, you wanted an offsite backups, you had to replicate to PBS data stores between physical servers, rely on shares, send those via rsync, VPNs, etc. Those via rsyncs, VPNs, etc. That worked, but it wasn't exactly flexible or cloud friendly. S3 compatible storage changes that. It lets you push your backups to any provider that speaks the S3 protocol from Wasabi, Backblaze, got it that time, MinIO, or Ceph RGW. So this means you have a true offsite protection. If your Proxmox host fails, your data's safe, and there's no hardware dependency, unless of course, you have your own S3 instance using MinIO or Garage, anything else. And all you need to do is if that catastrophe does happen, you just need to reinstall Proxmox if it is that bad, remount your PBS instance, or reinstall PBS, I should say, and then actually mount your storage to your Proxmox PVE server. Then you can get everything back over. Another thing is cost control. So a lot of S3 providers offer predictable flat rate storage with little or no egress fees. And if you're already following a 3-2-1 backup rule, 3 copies of your data on 2 different media and 1 offsite, this new S3 Datastore type finally makes that easy to do with natively integrated into PBS. Now, how does it work? So PBS 4 now adds 2 key components to the configuration menu: S3 endpoints and S3 Datastores. You first define your endpoint, basically telling PBS where and how to connect to your cloud provider, and then link a Datastore to a specific bucket in that endpoint. Now, how other platforms usually handle this kind of thing? Now, if you're coming from VMware or Zen, you might be wondering, haven't we seen this before? VMware, ESXi, and vSphere don't natively back to S3. They use third-party tools like Veeam, Nativo, and Vinchin. So you're kind of have a middleman, middleware sort of in the situation there. XCP-ng with Zen Orchestra actually has S3 remote backups built in, similar to PBS, though I haven't personally had much experience with it. And then Hyper-V leads towards Azure Blob Storage, different, similar to S3, but again, more if you're a Microsoft heavy environment or enterprise. So the key difference here is Proxmox Backup Server now does it natively, as I've said ad nauseum at this point. So no plugins, no middleware, no external licensing, just define your endpoint, connect your bucket, and you're ready to go. All right, so let's actually go through and see what the process is like for setting up an S3 Datastore and an actual S3 endpoint, or vice versa, I guess I should say. Because the first thing we're gonna do is our S3 endpoint. Now you can see I already have one created here. We're gonna use Wasabi for this example, but really any S3 provider will be fine to use. All just depends really on if you're using on-prem, like I said, through MinIO or anything like that. If you are using another S3 provider like Backblaze, but let's actually go through. Things shouldn't differ too much. The main difference that I had seen is path style that we see here. So that is going to be if you are using path style here, which is basically just the full path. So your S3 region, Amazon ASW, or Wasabi SYS in this example, and then / your bucket name and / object. But if you're doing vhost style, which is newer, and I believe path style is getting phased out a bit, at least on the AWS side of things, might be sticking around on other providers, but that's going to be more like the bucket name, S3 region, and then your provider like Wasabi.sys. Now, let's actually go in here and see what we have. So our endpoint, as I mentioned, S3.ca central, so that's just our region, then wasabi.sys.com. We're putting our region up here, same as it is in our endpoint. And then our access key and our secret key, those we'll grab from our S3 provider, of course. Our port, we'll leave that as 443, just as default, unless we need to use something else. Now, path style is unchecked by default, but I ran into an issue with Wasabi specifically where I couldn't actually do it, connect the endpoint or have recognize any of my buckets without checking that. So besides that, fingerprint, you can leave that as standard there. So once you have that actually set up, you can navigate down here to Datastore, then add Datastore, and we'll give it a name. We'll call this Wasabi Backup, if I can spell properly. There we go, Wasabi Backup. And for Datastore type, so we have 3 options. We have local, removable, and S3. Mentioned before, it's in tech preview, but I haven't had any issues with it. Mind you, that is my own use case. Other people, there have been reported issues, and now nothing game breaking from what I've seen, but just something to keep in mind. Now our local cache, this is where we're actually going to write our metadata and things too. So this can go to the boot drive, or if you have, let's say, a ZFS pool or something on your PBS instance, you can have it just go to there. And we are going to do /var/lib/proxmox backup/cache/wasabi. And then our S3 endpoint. So if everything's connected properly, when we created that S3 endpoint, this should pop up here. We can see it. And then the real way we know that it is connected, besides, if it fails that S3 endpoint, is it will auto-populate one of our buckets here. So we have 2, let's say I want to do PBS backups 45. We choose our garbage collection time frame here, prune schedule. We can add a comment here if need be. And from there, you can also define your pruning options, but all we need to do is actually add this, and it'll run through. So Wasabi backup, var lib backup, Wasabi chunks, enable to create directory. So it already exists. So this is one I had created from when we had initially, when I was testing this out. So let's actually go in and set it up properly now. So we'll do this, and we'll set it up as Wasabi 2, electric blue, and Wasabi 2. And we're gonna do S3 tech. Select our Wasabi bucket, HL backups, PBS, okay. And creating chunk stores, going through all of that, and we should get a success this time around. Yep, task okay. So from there, we could actually go in and look at our data stores themselves. So if I go in, refresh this page, because my network is a bit slow, there we go. So we can see here, typical to any other data store that you might have set up in PBS, it'll tell you how much storage you actually have, how many VMs, hosts, containers, and then it's just a matter of mapping it to your Proxmox PBE instance to facilitate those backups, and then that will push to the cloud on your set schedule there. Now, that's pretty much it for the basic setup there. If you do want to see anything more in depth, anything about PBS or PBE, let me know in the comments down below. But now let's get into just closing things up here. So now let's actually talk about using it in practice. So once connected, you can assign backup jobs to the new data store like any other VMs, LXCs, and even full Proxmox host configs can be sent to your Wasabi bucket on a schedule. And if you're running PBS as a VM on your Proxmox host, this setup is actually pretty decent because if that host goes down, drives fail, motherboard dies, whatever, your PBS VM might be gone, but the offsite S3 data remains intact. Spin up a new PBS instance anywhere, re-enter your endpoint, and your backups reappear. Then re-add that data store to a fresh PVE install, and it's like nothing happened besides all of the stress beforehand. And that's really true resilience at the end of the day, and far cheaper than maintaining 2 physical PBS nodes or a remote replication site, depending on how much data you have to put in the cloud if it's not self-hosted. And now, a few notes to consider. So as I mentioned, it is in a tech preview. As PBS4's release, S3 Datastores are still in that preview, but things do seem to be pretty stable. Speed, obviously it's going to be at the mercy of the internet link, and cost. So Wasabi charges for capacity, not egress. AWS or B2 might differ, and always check that beforehand. Now, alternatives and when to use each. Now, if S3 doesn't fit your case, PBS still supports ZFS Datastores, best for on-prem performance and snapshots, NFS, CIFS shares, so ideal for LAN backups, clusters, ZFS replication, perfect for multi-PBS or multi-PV nodes over fast links. But if anyone is looking for, close the loop on that 3-2-1 backup, having that S3 for that offsite is definitely beneficial. So that's your dive into S3 Datastores in Proxmox Backup Server 4, how to set them up, why they matter, and how they can harden your backup strategy. And this is still kind of a fresh feature, but already one that is a big leap in the right direction for the Proxmox ecosystem without giving, that open source control. So if you found this video helpful, drop a like, share it with your homelab crew. Let me know in the comments, are you already testing S3 Datastores or sticking with local ZFS for now? I'm Zack Perry, and this is 45 Homelab. See you in the next one. And if you want to see everything we have on offer, head on over to store.45homelab.com. And again, see you later.